I'm AJ Bianco, host of Reflect Ed, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Lorna Bryant, Head of Career Solutions for Pearson Virtual Schools. We're talking about initiatives focused on helping students with career readiness. Oh, this is so cool. So much to learn and think about. You're going to love it. Hey, by the way, before you go, it'd be so cool if you went to my website, stephenmiletto.com/reviews, and left a review. Could you do that for me? What do you think? That'd be a few nice words and 5 stars? You are awesome. Enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Miletto. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. With Dr. Steve Miletto.
Pearson announced that Connections Academy, its K-12 online school program, will expand its slate of college and career readiness initiatives for middle and high school students. The initiatives feature partnerships with Coursera, Acadeum, eDynamic Learning, and Credly. Lorna Bryant is the head of Career Solutions for Pearson Virtual Schools. As an educator, administrator, and career education expert, she has spent over 25 years working to identify and create effective and engaging educational options for children. Lorna, welcome, and say hi to everybody.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, glad to have you here. And Lorna, before we get into everything that you're doing now, could you just tell us a little bit more about you, and especially at some point you got to tell me how you got into this idea that what you want to work on is, being a career education expert. So that's cool.
Sure. So I'll actually start at the beginning because I think it matters. I was born and raised in South Africa, and obviously living in a country with such glaring disparities really shaped my views on education and obviously, access and equity. I was also the first woman in my family to finish high school, and so it was through those lenses that I entered the field of education after I came to the U.S. to pursue my college degree. I started teaching in a very small town in rural Arkansas, where there was plenty of talent, but the resources weren't maybe as plentiful. So, for instance, I had students perfectly capable of succeeding in an AP Physics course, but AP Physics teachers aren't exactly a dime a dozen in the rural South. And so I began thinking of ways to expose my students and our community to the types of opportunities that they lacked, maybe because of just geography or socioeconomic circumstances. And that's when I became increasingly interested in the role that technology could play in filling those gaps. And I think another important piece is beyond my own students. I have a son with autism and significant communication challenges. And assistive technology became one of the keys that really unlocked his ability to interact, engage with the world in a way that had never been possible before. So I knew from personal, professional experience what a powerful impact technology could have if it was leveraged appropriately, and on a young person's ability to learn and to demonstrate what they've learned. So that's ultimately how I moved from traditional brick and mortar classroom into the online and blended education space, and that's where I have spent the past 15 plus years focusing my time and attention.
Appreciate that. That's cool. It's and I, by the way, just a little difference of from South Africa to Arkansas.
That's right. Yeah, just a little bit, a little bit of. I had to adapt just a little bit to that. And they had to adapt to me, Steve. So let's be fair.
Nice. I was wondering if you could go there, but you did. So that's good. That's
it's true.
All right. So the one question, the other thing that I wanted to ask you though is how did you what really made you say I got to do this career expert thing. I gotta help people with careers. What made you do that?
So I think a lot of the work that I had done initially when working in online education, and even prior to online education, was finding ways to connect young people who may not have had the opportunities that maybe their peers had had. And so, career is a big piece of that, right? Making sure that these students had people who could both, advocate for them and connect the dots for them, show them what was possible. And one of the things we know, particularly today, is that students they want confidence, they want compensation, they want connections. And I felt like, particularly with technology, particularly with my experiences, I was going to be able to help connect those dots for them. High school doesn't end. Your education, your learning, your opportunities don't end at the 12th grade. And so I wanted to make sure that we were setting all of our young people up for success beyond high school, whatever success looks like for them.
That's so awesome. Appreciate it. Because I got to tell you, I can honestly say way back when I was, I had to do a lot of that on my own because what I was talking about, the people I had connections with really didn't know how to advise me. So they give me the book that had all the colleges in it and said, here, take a look at this. This is how the book works. And so I'd actually check those books out of the counseling department and go home and flip through them and promise to return them, and I would, and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, and it's one of those things that when you can have that help, it's so important, so important.
Well, you've hit on it, Steve. It sort of exactly with just that. Like we know that content is important, right? We know that information is important, and so we aim to provide comprehensive courses and pathways across a number of career clusters that will help students earn the knowledge that they need to earn them, to prepare them to earn an industry recognized certificate or a credential or be ready for college. But we know that quality content is just one piece of the puzzle. More than ever, our high school, even our middle school students, they want and they need career readiness programs that set them up for success faster. And that means that those programs have to be as dynamic as we know the future of work is. We have to allow them to explore more deeply, whatever their career interests may be. And we have to make sure that they can accelerate their learning so that they can enter college or workforce, job ready after high school. And central to that is what we're calling, somewhat, loosely around here, we're calling the SHIPs. Right? According to new research by Pearson, over 50% of early talent, so that's high school students, freshmen in college, they want internships, apprenticeships, mentorships, whether they're college bound or they plan to go straight to work. So as you said, Steve, it's great if I have to go and read a book, but if I have to try to figure out how to make those connections on my own, that's a much bigger challenge. We know that those SHIPs are essential to career readiness that these young people crave. And so a big part of our focus is dedicated to making those connections with industry and higher ed partners on behalf of our students. And you mentioned a few, Coursera, Acadeum, Pathful is another one that we're working with, eDynamic, Credly, which is a Pearson business. So making sure that we're tying all of those pieces together. And then also making sure that we give our students an opportunity to identify, their skills, their interests, their values, and then we identify opportunities for them to explore career fields and then connect with the kinds of SHIPs with which, they are personally most aligned, not that, we think they should be or their families think they should be.
That's so cool because that's, it's, one of the things I was the first, even though both my parents had gone to some kind of college or continued to go to it, neither of them had gone to a 4-year program. And their dream for me was that I would go to a 4-year college and I would get a degree, and what it was going to be in and what I was going to do, they didn't know. And, but that's what the push was. And so they didn't know how to help me with any thoughts about as I'm trying to do this. And of course I had my own thoughts about what I'm trying to pursue and things like this, which they just encouraged, but at the same time, it was all, you are going to end up in that 4-year place. And so, when you have the chance to talk about things and interests and figuring this stuff out, it's so important because you could end up making some serious choices along the way that are problematic because you end up with something that's not exactly what you're thinking about.
Well, absolutely. And it's, you and I probably came from similar backgrounds where our families believed that, the 4-year college route was the way to go, pretty much the only route to success. I was, the first first person, as I said, in my family to finish high school, the first woman in my family to finish high school. So for my family, it was, you are going to go to school and you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, neither of which were career paths I wanted to pursue. And so when I went into education, it really sort of shook them up. But I think there's sort of this growing awareness about careers that has really shifted over the past, even 10 years. In many areas, attending a four-year college was seen as the only opportunity to find a successful career. And now we know, thanks to technology, social media, there are thousands of ways to find a career that interests you. And so we want to make sure that, it's not an either or. Either you're going to go to college or you're going to pursue a career in industry, but maybe it's an and yes, and maybe I want to do this and I want to do that, and nothing should be, no door should be shut to these young people as they explore all the opportunities that are available to them.
I love that. Love it. Good stuff. So let's get a little more into the Pearson Virtual Schools here. For those listening who've never heard of it, can you tell us a little bit more about the schools you serve and what you do?
Sure. So Connections Academies are tuition-free virtual public schools. We are currently in about 29 states, and every year we serve over 100,000 students in K through 12. Since Connections Academies launched in 2001, I think we've served more than 1 million K through 12 students. Basically, we have an amazing curriculum that's designed by experts, delivered by teachers who have been, especially trained to teach online. And then we give our students this, what we like to think of as sort of a unique, well-rounded education that really empowers each child to learn in the way that they learn best. We want to create this high-quality educational experience. We want to keep students motivated, engaged, and obviously, what is very important to parents, safe. And so that's kind of that's what we lean into.
Excellent. Thanks. One of the things that I'd like you to talk a little bit about is the new college and career readiness initiatives that you've rolled out this fall. So, one of the things we just got finished talking about is that it's not necessarily that we're talking like my parents were, which, no matter what, you're going to that 4-year institution and you're going to like it, whether you want to or not. Now, my plans were all that way anyway. It was going to lead me towards the military, and there's all kinds of things that I was focused on, and it all worked out with me, trying to find guidance and such along the way, and making those stumbles and the trips and all the fun stuff that comes with it when you're doing your own planning and you're worried, you don't see some of those pitfalls coming. It's funny. I have to say this because, one of the things that was big in those days was writing these essays to get accepted. And it's funny, after I got accepted and was in college and stuff, I started talking to some of the other, some of my friends and stuff like this, and they started telling me about stuff they wrote about. And I'm like, wow, that would have been a great idea to write about. That was a cool way of thinking about that. And I just, just kind of threw this, beginning, middle, and end thing together, and like an essay, and submitted it, and hoped that they still chose me. But
well, and if you were somebody like me, that was great, who loved to write and loves words, and if you're somebody like my husband, right, who is dyslexic. And for whom writing was an incredibly challenging exercise, but who is absolutely brilliant with his hands and with technology and has made a wonderful career working in IT. But at the time, he really felt like college was not for him. He was not going to be able to be successful because he lacked, to your point, even that early step, right? That early obstacle, even to just getting into college, even though highly intelligent, highly capable, but lacked some of those skills that people are looking for or were looking for as kind of a prerequisite to even being able to pursue a college education.
It's wild. All right. So let's talk about these college and career readiness initiatives that you guys have rolling out now.
So I think, this kind of leads perfectly into my, what I consider to be one of the most exciting initiatives that we're rolling out. We've talked about, we have wonderful content. We have this great focus on identifying internships and mentorship opportunities for our young people. But something else that we're launching is something that we're calling the tri-credit approach. And it kind of hits on, Steve, those different things we've talked about, like what works best for you. Is it college? Is it simply early career readiness? And so what we're doing is we're launching this initiative that allows students to earn simultaneously 3 things. One is a high school credit from Connections Academy. The second is an industry recognized, our industry recognized micro credentials through Coursera. And then finally, eligibility for college credit via the Coursera and Academ's college and university partner networks. So our students will be, be able to take courses in fields like data analytics, UX design, software development, cybersecurity, and having completed those courses, having earned those certificates, they will be able to take those to certain universities, to certain colleges, and earn college credit for those. So basically, what it allows them to do is they earn credit while saving time, while saving money. So it's a cost and a time-saving initiative for these students, right? By the time they start college, they have credits that they may choose to use, or they may choose to go straight into the job market. But the other piece is, in addition to sort of preparing them for a career they want to pursue, it might also help to identify a career that they don't want to pursue, right? We have a lot of young people who have to end up making that decision at the most expensive time of their life, which is when they're 2 or 3 years into college and suddenly decide that maybe this was not the field they wanted to pursue to begin with. So we're hoping to give our young people kind of a head start, starting in their high school career, so that they'll have that information and they'll have those resources and those credits at their disposal, regardless of what they decide to do.
I think that's so cool because it's one of those things, especially when you're a kid, and I'm sure many people remember some of these things. You're easily swayed sometimes by your friends, and we also have the input that our parents have and so forth. But our friends have a little more sway there, and you might have heard of something that one of them was thinking about doing, and someone was doing this or that. And one of my favorite thoughts about this was that I really wanted to be a comic book artist, all right? And I love superheroes, and Spider-Man and Batman were my 2 biggies, and I was thinking about that, and I had a friend who was amazing at it, and he also was an art student, and he took private tutoring type things. I'm just surprised he never did that. He went into the music world instead, that was also another talent. But I had no tutor, and I had none of that, and I had the comics that I read, and I practiced and all this sort of stuff, and I didn't realize that there are kind of some rules about where the muscles go when you do the body and so forth. And and it's one of those things that it suddenly became something that I don't think that's the direction I want to go. And I often wonder, I at that same time I was thinking about, well, it'd be cool to be a veterinarian. And then my dad got me an unpaid kind of like one of those ships you were talking about, where I spent a summer working with a veterinarian, and I found out something. As great as it was, animals die, and suddenly I cry at different movies. All right, and that's not even real. And then here I am in the room, and I'm helping take care of the conversations that are happening with the families as they deal with their pet. Who's no longer here, and I'm like, okay, nope, no, this is not good for me. This is it's really cool having guidance and a program in order to work out through this, and then plus you're talking about getting credit to attend. Can you talk a little bit about like the types of some of the programs that are kind of more popular that kids might, I hate to say that. A lot of times people say, well, all of them are popular, but
Well, it's true. We've sort of started with those that we anticipate will be more appealing to young people, right? So starting with social media marketing, we know that this is a pretty entrepreneurial generation of students. We know that, if you look at TikTok and you look at some of the technology that they're utilizing to already build their brand. But to your point, almost about being a cartoonist, there's more to it than simply launching a YouTube video or TikTok, right? And so we're wanting to sort of lean into what we think may be of interest to them and appealing to them, but at the same time show like there are ways to approach this that are more likely to actually land you a career and have you sort of set up for this kind of thing down the road. So we're starting with, with Google Analytics. We're starting with Meta social media marketing. We interestingly had a fair number of students who were very interested in, retail and being, working in that field. And so we've introduced Salesforce and the ability to be kind of a sales professional. And so we're kind of starting with those to see, how students digest them, how they respond to them. But across the sort of Coursera platform, there are thousands of options. And one of the other things that we're showing our young people is, let's say you still say you want to go to college, right? You really want to go and pursue a degree in history. I was an English literature major. Like, we know just how employable English literature majors can be. You want to pursue philosophy, right? That's fine. But one of the things we're able to show them is, if you couple that degree with a credential in data analytics or UX design, your chances of being employed, or your chances of earning a salary that is 20 to 30% higher than you might otherwise with a pure English lit or philosophy degree, are much more significant. And so we're sort of starting, as well as putting these credentials in front of them so that they can have a skill that they can, that they can advertise, they can post on LinkedIn, they can start to build their digital backpack. It's also to start to educate them about the fact that, again, it's not either or. You can go to college and pursue the degree that you're most interested in, but at the same time, having some of these resources in your back pocket are going to help you long-term with your career. So hopefully, after this year, we'll be, really adding to the suite of offerings that we're going to be, putting through our tri-credit approach.
That's so cool. I mean, so one of the things I got to make sure I get you to say, so how do they find out about you? I mean, how do they figure this out? I mean, is it a neon sign in some schools and other places you got to find the person who knows anything, or?
Yeah, so hopefully we will be putting all of this on our websites and through conversations with guys like you, Steve. Hopefully we will be able to start building some awareness. Right now we're piloting this in a few schools. Some schools raised their hands. It's pretty new in the space, and they were willing to try it first. So this year we're doing it across 5 schools, with the idea that once we have some true confidence in the approach and how this works with young people and how they're responding to it, then we can start to spread this across the entire Connections Academy network. We want to make sure that we're doing it thoughtfully, and that we're anticipating how students respond to something. We know how adults do. We know how successful this is in higher ed and workforce, but bringing it into younger people is a pretty new approach. And so we want to make sure that we're working out the kinks, and then we plan to launch it more broadly.
That's awesome. So for let's talk for a minute about the the school leaders that are listening, who are in a traditional school setting and so forth. I mean, do you have advice on how they could deliver, in changing how career advice is given and so forth like that in their own schools?
Yeah, and I would actually say, for traditional brick and mortar, online, however you're delivering it, I think for any school leader right now, it's essential for us to recognize that the landscape of career readiness is evolving rapidly. And we need to be ready to adapt our approaches to better prepare our students for the future. I think the other thing is, and maybe this is a bit more of a challenge sometimes in traditional models, is embracing flexibility. We have to be ready to incorporate more flexible learning options within our school programs. And that could be offering more online courses, allowing students to participate in internships and mentorships, apprenticeships, providing opportunities for project-based learning outside of the traditional classroom. I think we have to, also consider that leveraging technology is not a bad thing. We need to utilize technology to connect students with virtual resources, mentors, industry professionals. I think a lot of people believe that quality can only happen in person. And interestingly, that still seems to be somewhat the feeling, even though we've seen what we can do when we work remotely. There's a ton being done with virtual reality and simulations that can provide, the equivalent of hands-on experiences in various fields, even for students in physical classrooms. And that can bridge the gap between traditional and online learning. And then empower student choice. I mean, this is a very interesting generation of young people who know how to advocate for themselves, are willing to kind of question, well, is that the path I want to go down, or is there something else I want to pursue? they're increasingly making their own career choices, and they're increasingly making those based on more than how lucrative a career they can pursue. It's important. They want financial stability, but they want to find careers that match their personal values and their interests. You know, some people are referring to them as the activist generation. And we have to consider those things as we're introducing them to opportunities and possibilities. I think we need to highlight career readiness skills that are not just about technical skills, right? When you look at some recent data that shows what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for, about a year ago, it was 7 out of 10 were looking for these durable skills. They used to be called soft skills. Now we call them transferable skills or professional skills. I saw a study a week ago that said that's now 9 out of 10 of those skills are what they are looking for.
Wow.
Because they're essentially, you know, in a lot of ways, they're AI resistant, right? These are the kinds of things that we're going to continue to need to have in our futures and in our careers. So we need to start showing young people that there are opportunities for you to really exercise skills that are going to be valuable and marketable, right? If you're a good communicator, you have good leadership skills, you know how to collaborate, let's give them opportunities to practice that. But let's also make sure that they have some confidence that they can go into the workforce and somebody will hire them because of things beyond just the fact that they have these great technical skills or, you know, a ton of content knowledge. And then I think we have to make sure that we're continually evaluating and adapting our approach. That has not always been the case in education. We tend to stick with what we like. You know, I know teaching English, I glommed onto the Middle Ages and taught them forever because it was something I just was personally attached to. But we have to make sure that we are continuously assessing the effectiveness of our career readiness programs and making those necessary adjustments, which, you know, part of our reason for partnering with somebody like Coursera is because they are listening to industry trends and they are adapting and updating as those trends shift. And so we're able to bring those changes to our students at the same time as they're happening and react to that. So that's a lot, but I think that's the kind of thing we just have to, as school leaders generally, and even as parents, start to be, you know, more open to.
That's so powerful. I mean, it when you think about it and stuff, what you're really doing is making me think about, I remember those days because, you know, I've told you a couple of them. I mean, one of them I thought about, what I really want to do is fly jets. That would be so cool. I want to fly jets. I built plastic models of airplanes all the time, and I went to air shows and all kinds of stuff. I said, that's what I want to do. So I'm going to go. Part of me was military and fly jets. And one day I was talking to a friend of mine as I was working on stuff, applications or whatever, and someone who knew me very well, my friend said to me, he goes, you know, you don't like roller coasters, do you? And I said, no, what's your point? And he said, well, that's like the biggest roller coaster that exists. And I said, yeah. And
going to go for you.
Right. And what's funny is, so I became an officer in the Army, just a note, but the ground. Feet on the ground. Feet on the ground. But the funny thing about this was that I started focusing on military academies, and at my school, there was no one who really understood how to help me in that direction. The timing of the world also had to do probably with some of that too. And even though I didn't make the academy, I ended up in something called a military junior college, and that allowed me to achieve my dream into the military and become an officer that way, and then to do the other stuff that ends up becoming my teaching. And but the point is that there's a whole bunch of little stumbles that happen along the way, and it's interesting that I kind of learned as I tripped through these things, like being told, you know, flying jets, that's going to be rough. You're going to decorate the inside of that cockpit. That's that might have been TMI. I'm sorry, but you know,
no, I can relate. I don't like roller coasters either.
But it's funny because, you know, sometimes, like I learned recently, one of the things. I mean, it's interesting when you find out about just when you talk with other people and they start thinking about stuff that they're interested in. This world that we're in today, there's so many things that have just changed so rapidly that, you know, really didn't for a while there, even though they were changing the background. I mean, it still was, you know, AI was a thing in the movies, like when, and for those who don't know this reference, but when the when Hal decides that Dave is no longer needed, the astronaut, and Hal is the computer in space. And and by the way, maybe and Skynet was just a thing out of a very cool movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, walking around as a Terminator. And but now there's people wondering where we're going with this. I read I read a story the other day that was talking about just how automated fast food is becoming rapidly. And one of the most frustrating things is when you get the automated robot to fill you your drink, because it only fills it to this certain level, whereas a kid would actually fill it like they would want it. And
exactly.
but this type of stuff is changing so rapidly. Even though I don't think we need to be afraid of Hal or the Terminator right now or Skynet, there's certain things that it does need. When people talking about careers and things like this, need to keep in mind that you're going to need to know a little bit more about this type of world. I mean, what do you think?
That's it. Yeah, I mean, you've got to be informed, right? I mean, now knowledge is power. Yes, it's the cliche, but it's true. It's a couple of things. I mean, you hit on some of this, right? Careers are not linear, right? And
Right.
Education now is not linear either, right? There are ways for you to explore different things, some of which this technology has made possible. Definitely, it's made us more aware, right, of what those different options are and those different paths are. But I think, at the risk of repeating myself, I think the best way to avoid being replaced by technology is to embrace technology, right? One thing we know is that Pandora is out of the box.
Yes.
However you view that, as good or bad, that's not changing. We're not going backwards anytime soon. And there's always going to be true human intelligence that is necessary to make, artificial intelligence and automation beneficial for human beings. So there is a way to take this technology and find a way to replace repetitive, mundane tasks and spend more of our time, invest more of our time in things that are personally meaningful to us. There's been concerns in the classroom about teachers being replaced by AI. That's simply not going to happen. But what it might do is free up the time spent on, grading papers and doing some of the, sort of the more mundane pieces, so that they can really spend their time focusing on connecting with their students and pursuing the things that are interesting to them. I think that people who are more comfortable with and more familiar with AI are going to be able to see it as it's an editor, it's an assistant. It's not the person or the thing that ultimately replaces or does their work for them. And then that goes back to those human and durable skills, right? Let's make sure that we are honing those, we are showcasing those, we are encouraging those, and that's why I'm glad we're no longer really calling them soft skills, because soft suggests squishy and less important. But human, durable, professional, transferable skills are really where I think we need to be focusing, because we know that's what employers are seeking, and we know that those are somewhat future resistant, if we want to call it that.
It's so important to know that information, because it's funny, there for a while, and it's very popular right now. A lot of HR, doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, a lot of them are using some of these algorithms that are determine whether you get next step through the door or something like this. And what they're discovering is that if you just didn't say the right word or two, that you may be out, as opposed to the human interaction, which may be the reason why you got through the door, even though you didn't use all the correct words or something like that.
Interesting stat, Steve. It's exactly right. It's important, yes, that you can fill out your resumes. There was a stat I read recently that said, 85% of people will get a job through a human connection, right? Somebody who says, I know this person, I vouch for this person. I know you have 1,000 resumes you're currently reviewing, but hey, give this person a shot. And another slightly, maybe more alarming one is that something like 80% of jobs are never even posted, right? So
Right.
This goes back to that idea of ships, right? Making those connections, building those networks for our young people, so that we can give them, sort of open those doors that for so many students have been shut simply because of their background, or the fact that they lack some of those immediate connections. Maybe they don't benefit from the internship or the opportunity the introduction a parent can make for them. But thanks to technology, there are ways to really bring those to these young people instead of expecting them to have to go out and find them on their own. So I think that it's an incredibly important piece to make, because you're right, an algorithm should not be what keeps you from getting a job. But maybe a human connection, right, will help you to get it.
I love that. Because that's exactly, it's part of our world, that going back to those skills that you're talking about, that's where they come into play, which is the idea that I can show you that who I am, as opposed to the words that come out on the paper. Exactly. And I didn't use the one that the robot's looking for.
Well, exactly.
So, this is cool. So tell me what trends you're seeing out of the kids, out of the students right now, as far as career readiness is going. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, they're a great generation. Like, all the generations are great, right? But I'm really enjoying this one. First of all, I think definitely, as I mentioned earlier, there's a sort of a changing perspective on what career success looks like. They're much more proactive in making their own career choices. And, again, not that making a good living is not important to them, right? That compensation does matter, but they are far more likely to prioritize fulfillment and what matches their values than generations before them. And so I think that's a super important shift in their perspective. I think we mentioned this already around sort of this entrepreneurship and marketing piece. A lot of people like, oh my gosh, no, they just sort of dismiss it as this silly hobby and this silliness about social media and TikTok and so on. But I really think we have to consider the popularity of entrepreneurship and self-marketing among our students, right? Especially through platforms like YouTube and TikTok and so on, because it showcases how they're building their own brands. And so it's important that we support them in those endeavors and find ways to help them channel that in a way that might be a productive, career choice. I definitely think that they are more aware of options that are out there because of technology, because of social media. In the past, it was like, if you want to go into education, you have to be a teacher. If you want to go into the health field, you have to be a nurse or a doctor. And so you've got these young people who go, well, I hate blood and I couldn't possibly go in, without recognizing that, some of the biggest employers of IT are in healthcare. So if you want to go into healthcare and that's important to you to be part of that, you want to help, you want to give back, you want to contribute, but you don't want to be a teacher, you don't want to be a nurse. There are hundreds of other jobs, right, that can be in an area that you're interested in, a career that you're interested in, but in a space or a field that you really think aligns with your values and your mission and your life. And then I think the other thing, and this is changing, and it's changing with educators and parents, but it's changing slowly, which is this evolving perception of what career and technical education, or CTE, is, right? I think growing up, and certainly, teaching, the idea was that, college was for college, right? And that's where those students are going. And then CTE is vocational aid, or it's for students who aren't interested in pursuing, a college degree. And we see now that more and more students and parents are open to considering career readiness programs or CTE programs as viable career pathways. Again, no longer that either or approach, right? More of that yes and trajectory. I can pursue employment right now and choose to go to college later, or I can go to college now and at the same time, consider what my employability options may be. But I definitely think there is this changing idea of what career readiness education can be, and that is college and career readiness. They're not mutually exclusive.
So cool. You're so right. You got me thinking about this. First time I got introduced to computers, I wish it hadn't been this way. But you got extra credit if you stayed after in the math department chair's room and you typed in these go-to if-then statements and that were coming out of these magazines so they could play these games. All right. And you got extra credit for doing that. And that was my introduction, because the first day I learned about save, because in those days there was no such thing as automatic save, which I learned. Yep. I learned the hard way.
I learned that the hard way a few times. So.
Nice. You come back and I just think about how far we've progressed, because it's so much part of our lives now, and it wasn't then. And if if I'd had someone talking with me a little bit about some of that stuff, I probably would have taken a little left turn at Albuquerque, and I would have said, maybe I need to take a look at. Sorry, I watched too much Bugs Bunny when I grew up. But it's there's so much to the thinking and the thoughts that they have about, and I guess here's part of my point is listening to them about getting someone who will listen to them and give them some advice about where they're going.
That's right, because students still listen to their parents, right? Their parents still have the greatest impact on the decisions that they make. Slightly behind are school counselors, right? So it's like 62% parents, 61% school counselors. So we need to make sure that we are equipping, right? Parents, counselors, whoever that student is listening to exactly to your point, listen to them. These are the kinds of questions to ask them. These are the kinds of options to be aware of so that you're hearing from them, but then you have the ability to provide some informed guidance and suggestions and recommendations that, that are basically evolving with the way the world is evolving itself. Because the parents and guardians and, counselors and others are going to continue to be important influencers, even if these young people are coming in with their own ideas and perspectives.
So cool. So cool. Lorna, we're getting ready to finish up. If someone wanted to follow up and connect with you and learn more, where would you send them?
Sure. So they can certainly find me on LinkedIn. That is always a good spot to go. I am always open to direct email. So my work email is lorna.bryant@pearson.com, and they are certainly welcome to reach out that way.
Awesome. I'll put that information in the show notes, so it'll be easy for them to find and connect with you, which is good stuff. I got two last questions I'd like to ask my guests, and one of them goes like this. How do you keep going when so much is going on that you may want to quit?
Oh, it's such a good question because it goes beautifully with my favorite quotes. So I do have a favorite quote that I've had for as long as I can remember, and it's from Helen Keller. And it is, I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. And the reason it's so, important to me is because, we can become so overwhelmed by the scope of the challenges in front of us. If we look at it, especially as educators, we know that the stakes are really high. And so sometimes we become so discouraged by our inability to solve what seems like an insurmountable problem that we just stop altogether because we just can't solve the whole thing. And so it reminds me every time I see that, every effort, every accomplishment, it doesn't matter how insignificant it seems in isolation, especially if you combine that with, the efforts of others. And I've been so lucky to work with passionate, dedicated people. You really can have some pretty impactful outcomes. And you don't see it maybe at the time, but years later, when you look back and you reflect and you think about lives you've impacted, it's pretty inspiring. It's hard to stop when you know that that's a possibility.
That's cool. I love it. Last question. Do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it? And what would you say if given the chance to say thank you?
Well, actually, I have two, interestingly, both history teachers, even though I got an English degree. I would say my very first was my high school history teacher in South Africa. I don't know that I quite realized it at the time, but as I got older, I realized just how unbelievably courageous she was. At a time in apartheid era South Africa, there were very strong restrictions on what could be taught. And, she made sure at what I now recognize was such great personal risk, to make sure that we knew that there was more than we were being told and that we knew, and to push us to always ask questions and to challenge something if it didn't seem right. And I have carried that forever. And then my second was the teacher who actually took me into her home here in the U.S. She supported me so that I could, in every way, so that I could, pursue my family's dream of me getting a college degree in the U.S. And, when I look at the impact that she's had on her students, I mean, she helped impact generational change. And because I still live here, I can actually see that when I see the students and their families that she touched. So those two women have been pretty powerful people in my life. And I don't know that I actually could thank them enough.
Thanks so much, Lorna. This is so cool. And that's neat to have you share that information. Because, oh my gosh, I can imagine she was taking some serious risks there. So, but thank you so much for sharing all about Pearson, the virtual schools and the Connections Academy, and talking about career and career decisions and students and where that path might be taking them, how you guys can help them. That's good stuff. What an awesome focus you guys have, and I wish you the best in all you do.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for letting me share, and thank you for what you do and all the information that you share. I really appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Hey, you have been listening to Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.